Welcome to a new edition of Gerety Talks. We are happy to announce our new partnership with the African Cristal Festival, the festival that exists to inspire, recognize, and reward great creativity in communications for all the continent. And we welcome today the jury president of the 10th edition, Ete Davies, EMEA EVP at Dentsu Creative. Let's start with an introduction. Can you please tell us a little more about yourself, your role, and your agency?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Ete Davies. I'm a Londoner, live and work in the UK. But my role, as you mentioned, at Dentsu Creative is I'm the EVP for our creative practice across Europe, Middle East, and Africa at Dentsu. So I'm responsible for leading our creative businesses across the region in Dentsu, which is about 3,000 people and 31 different markets, um,
Okay.
helping everybody come together to deliver on Dentsu's creative mission of transformative creativity for its clients and society. What that means on a day-to-day basis is working with our different teams and leads in all of those markets around how we grow our creative business, partnering with them around product and proposition design and services, leading on some of our international clients and new business, as well as things like the agency, brand marketing, and PR across the region. Lots of work on community building and culture and knowledge sharing, and then also actually bringing new capabilities into our creative offering. So helping to stand up our first proper creative presence in Germany with an agency that we recently acquired called RCKT. And then also Dentsu Group acquired Tag, which is a global content production business, a couple of years ago, and I've been working to integrate that across our creative business in the EMEA region.
Cool. And what was your first reaction when you were invited to be the president of the African Cristal Festival?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty speechless, I guess, in when Justin Thomas Copeland, who is a friend of mine and a bit of a mentor, approached me and put me in touch with Mehdi, and they sort of asked me, well, how can I describe my feelings? I mean, everything: honored, excited, very privileged. Obviously, my family background and history meant a lot to me to be the jury president. My parents are from Nigeria, like different parts of Nigeria. They've been living in the UK for many years. My dad actually has a career in broadcasting, so he used to be a news presenter for the Nigerian Television Authority.
Okay.
And we grew up watching like the VHS tapes of him presenting the news. So as far as like media and communications, in the African continent, there's a familial tie there. So I felt a great sense of pride and privilege, but I was also aware of the fact that I am not a creative working in the continent and the region. So coming in as the president, it's as much being able to learn and build connections and sort of see everything that's kind of out there. So I'm mindful of the privilege I have of not being a creative working in the region, leading this group, and just honored at the opportunity to spotlight and celebrate African creativity.
And what type of campaigns or work are you looking forward to seeing? What do you expect?
It's a really good question. I am because I spend quite a lot of time working with our teams across both MENA and Sub-Saharan Africa in the Dentsu Creative business. I have a an insight into the work we produce in our organization, and then also I said like the sort of cultural ties, and I feel that um, creativity, like innovation, entrepreneurialism, are things that are very inherent to every community and country in Africa. And from working with our teams, I'm sort of seeing firsthand how things like Gen AI are being used to really enhance creativity beyond just his production efficiency and cost saving, but like what's happening in the craft and the execution and the idea development where AI is a partner and all, sort of augmenting creativity. So really seeing some really interesting innovation in that space, and particularly in social. But also like, there are some really great examples of traditional media and innovation in traditional media, particularly things like out of home, radio,
Hmm.
even TV, as well as the things like social, mobile, and retail. Some of our best integrated creative teams in Dentsu are in Africa, you know, in terms of the 360 marketing activity and activations that they do for our clients. So there's a lot, I think, to look forward to in the breadth of work. But I guess as varied as execution can be, you know, across African creativity, effectiveness and particularly like campaign and commercial effectiveness is the one consistent theme that I'm looking to see a lot more, and hopefully, you know, as judges, we'll really be able to sort of root out those properly impactful campaigns. Um, you know, Africa is arguably the most diverse continent on the planet in terms of cultures, languages, customs, etc. So, you know, each country then has like quite a lot of complexity in the market as to how varied and diverse its consumers are. And I think, and what I witness is a lot of that diversity sort of bursts some really interesting lateral thinking, unexpected creative ideas and strategic leaps, as well as like creating a lot of global cultural trends. They come out of the continent. So I'm actually also looking forward to seeing what cultural trends come out of the work that we then
Mm.
see shaping global creativity and trends in the coming years. So in summary, yeah, key things: innovation, both in execution ideas, commercial impact, unique flavor and insights, and what are sort of the like sort of forthcoming cultural trends that start to emerge.
It's also a very young continent, especially in comparison to Europe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm. And what do you expect from your jury? What kind of guidelines or will you be helping them with?
Uh, yeah, good question. I mean, honestly, I feel quite fortunate in the jury that's been selected because I mean, it's some of the best talent across the continent. And you know, the ACF team have done a really great job of like handpicking everybody for like unique insights and expertise. So I think they'll do quite an excellent job, you know, of just getting to outstanding work. Um, I hope, you know, as a group, we're able to be open-minded, curious, passionate, set really high expectations. You know, my main guideline would be to encourage conversation, to encourage proper interrogation of the work, because the aim, I think, particularly as it's the 10th, you know, edition, I think significant milestone is to aim to not just set the benchmark for African creativity, but also I think signal globally what the future of great creativity could look like.
Mm.
Point given, you know, a young, culturally trend-setting continent. So what can we really signal globally around imagination, inventiveness, and commercial impact when it comes to creativity?
You more or less answered already, but is there something that you expect to find in the festival that you would not find anywhere else?
Honestly, anything is possible. I think, and that's what I love about it, right? Because as we mentioned, like the sort of diversity
Hmm.
rate of innovation is just what makes judging this so interesting. So I'm expecting to see the unconventional, particularly brands agencies just taking risks, you know, to really cut through and do something truly different to engage meaningfully with consumers and audiences.
And I read some of the recommendations you received in your LinkedIn profile, and they all emphasize what a great creative leader you are. What do you think is key to get people to get out their creative best selves, and how to encourage the people that work with you?
Well, I think everyone is very kind to me on LinkedIn. But I don't know. I mean, I think if I was to make it simple, I think the things that have always stood out for me in our sector when it comes to creativity and particularly commercial creativity, I think there's always like two pillars of it for me. One is imagination and the other is collaboration, and that's all encompassed by people and talent. And so, you know, the job that I've spent my career doing, from, you know, working on just clients and projects to building organizations and businesses, is creating the right environment for like different thinking skills, people from different backgrounds, you know, expertise, perspectives, to find ways to collaborate in an environment and work and learn from each other. And I think that's what's key. I mean, people talk a lot about psychological safety, but you know, I think that's a big part of it. So, you know, creating an environment both culturally, but also I think the operating system, like how things happen in the organization, so that there is freedom to experiment. You know, people are encouraged to be curious and learn from each other, and also be learning. People are encouraged to collaborate with people that are quite different to them, both in terms of expertise and sort of thinking, but also building a bit of resilience and tenacity. Because I think when you're really pushing the boundaries and doing something different, you're more likely to fail than succeed, you know? And there's a that can affect people's confidence, it can affect people's desire to keep trying,
Mm.
making sure that they, you know, you sort of help people build that resilience and that tenacity and that sort of driving curiosity, I think is key.
I think that's great advice for life in general, not just for for
Absolutely.
especially how the world is today. I mean, a little bit more collaboration wouldn't hurt, right?
100%. I mean, the only way we solve the big complex problems that we have is by lots of great minds working together to solve.
Mm,
You know, that nothing is going to be solved. The challenges we have are so great it won't be solved individually. So
mm.
yeah, hopefully, you know, in some of the work we'll see, we'll be able to show examples to the world of what happens when, you know, people come together and collaborate to solve challenges.
And you've built a 20 plus career across agencies like AKQA, Tribal Worldwide, Digitas, and now EVP at Dentsu Creative EMEA. How has your international experience shaped your perspective on African creative work?
Um, I mean, I think my I've been very fortunate in my career to work, you know, globally with lots of different markets from Asia to the US, you know, to across the EMEA region. And I think what it's helped sort of continue to build in me is open-mindedness, curiosity, a desire to really understand the different nuances within culture and markets, everything from symbols and totems and customs to sort of, you know, values to how things really work, you know, beneath the surface, either um, in a market or in a community within it. So I think that's something that my international experience has built within me and has continued to sort of foster. And for me, again, when I've had the chance to sort of judge at other international awards and working with our teams, you know, African creativity just continually inspires me. And there are lots of learnings we take in our organization from the teams we work with and share across the EMEA region. Again, as I mentioned, that, you know, sort of the approach to some fairly complex challenges across, you know, sort of markets or audiences is always quite innovative. I think Africa in particular has a really interesting use of humor and understanding the kind of arcane bits of local culture, the things that only people can know in a hyper local way, you know, down to like a city or a region or a street, and use that to sort of connect with consumers in quite a meaningful full way. And so I think that's the thing that sort of shaped my perspective as to what's quite interesting about African creative work.
You were recently announced as a finalist in the Black British Business Award, so first, congratulations. And in a post, you said, anyone from my generation who grew up in a West African or any immigrant family background will know how challenging it was to convince family, parents, and friends that it was possible to build a successful career in the creative industries. So, how did you manage to convince them, if you did? Or maybe you did not and you just did it anyway.
It was definitely the last one. You know, at the time, I didn't convince them, and just kind of went through the plan all the same. Blazed my own trail. You know, I was fortunate enough to have you know, mentors and, you know, people that I could seek advice to and look up from who'd also been blazing the trail in the industry, but sort of building my own career within it. I mean, like anyone, as I said, from an immigrant sort of family background, there are some like cultural reasons why there are certain career paths, you know, that are sort of uh, pushed and encouraged more. But there's also a thing of like, you know, your parents, your community just want to make sure that you're happy and the best outcome is for you. And more often than not, that will be in things they know rather than the unknown.
Mm.
Particularly if they're in a foreign country and culture and a minority within it. So it was the latter, sort of building my own path. But you know, as you know, I became more successful in it and progressed in my career and started to get more recognition. You know, there's been a lot of appreciation and celebration within my family to understand that you can build a career as someone who is both from the black community, from an immigrant family in, you know, the creative industries in the UK, where no one else in my family had built a career, you know, in this country through that route. And now I'm sort of using as an example to talk to younger family members and siblings and whoever else who might be unclear where they go next, but might be slightly creative leaning. So I think I've done some good in the
They
trailblazer.
must be proud, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I think they are now. It took a long time. I mean, initially, I think they always thought, do you work in IT or, like, is it sales? And then, but now they fully understand and are, yeah, very proud. So, and they've been as supportive as they can be, even though, initially maybe this wasn't the preferred route that they wanted me to take.
Hmm. And you mentioned your dad was in broadcast, and you are a non-executive director at Guardian Media Group. What is your specific role, and what does that imply?
Yeah, I mean, so without going into, I guess, too much detail about it, the Guardian Media Group is independent news organization. The main brand underneath the Guardian Media Group is obviously the Guardian newspaper or
Hmm.
news media, and the focus of Guardian Media Group is all about protecting and delivering independent journalism globally, which I think we can both agree is probably more important than ever right now in the world in terms of sharing information, knowledge, helping everybody understand sort of true facts and trying to actually bring the worlds together, in that sense. So within the non-exec director role, there's a lot of the standard things around the corporate governance that comes with a non-executive director role. But also I'm working on the board with my board colleagues and the exec critically to ensure that the Guardian Media Group is able to continue providing in perpetuity independent journalism, particularly as the global media and cultural landscape evolves and changes.
Hmm. And you mentioned some of the creative trends you are looking forward to seeing from the continent during the festival, but globally, what are the creative trends that currently excite you most?
It's interesting. I would say there is like there's a human behavioral trend that I think could be quite interesting. That is something to keep an eye on. And yeah, of course, I'm going to say something about AI because it's the big topic at the moment. But I think in particular, how AI is slowly starting to shape behavior, particularly around content and information ecosystems. So thinking about, AI search, for example, what's going to come with agentic AI, the algorithms that govern a lot of the social media and content, and even, like news media content that we're all being served. Um, and when I think of brands and creativity, you know, the touch points for interaction and connection between audiences and consumers and brands are becoming much more fragmented and also more disconnected from the core of the brand. So I think what's interesting, and we start to see it emerge in some of the creative work that's coming through, and I'm sure we'll see it in the African Cristal Festival work, is the brands that are finding unique ways to cut through that disconnection and fragmentation, to try and still build direct brand to audience connections and draw people away from beyond the wider ecosystem of all these different touch points into sort of core elements of the brand platform or architecture, or brands who are finding ways to sort of live like distinctly and memorably inside the complex ecosystem rather than trying to battle it. I think those are two emerging trends that I think will shape creativity, and you already see different brands trying to um, work within that in different ways.
And the last question to wrap up, what kind of stories or ideas would you like to see rewarded at festivals in the future?
Yeah, so I mean, for anyone that knows me, this answer is probably not gonna surprise them, but like, so the word purpose and sort of setting aside the word purpose for the moment, because I appreciate in the current, context of the world and with a lot of questions around purpose washing and creativity, and I accept there are some complexities and nuances to purpose-driven work, some of which has been done well in the past and some which has not for different reasons. I am still a very strong believer that commercial creative work has to hit that trifecta of delivering for the business, against commercial objectives, but also meeting the needs of customers and audiences, but also ensuring that the business the work is being created for or in service of continues to help that organization operate in a sustainable and responsible way for wider society and the environment. Because we don't exist, nothing exists in the vacuum, which we are all experiencing in the world right now. And I truly believe it's possible to do all those three things. And I think it's actually more important for long-term sustainability of a brand and a business to focus on doing all three. So I would like, and I would hope to continue to see like true purpose in that sense, that delivers on all of these three things and is authentically relevant both to the brand and the business and customers, continue to be celebrated and rewarded in festivals in the future, because I personally think it's more important than ever.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing with us a little bit of your career and life in general. And I hope you enjoy very much your role as president this year for the Crystal Festival. And we will be looking forward to seeing the winners.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure I will. And yeah, thank you for the conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.